Okay, are you ready,
Yeah,
David?
yeah, ready.
Okay. Hey everyone, thanks again for joining. My name is Simran and I'm with Canopy. Canopy is a co-working space that's based in San Francisco. And I'm going to put our website in the chat box below so you can come check it out. And I see a couple of our members are actually in the chat, right, in the audience. Today we go on my favorite series, and that's with the National Geographic Explorers. And we've got shark conservationist, documentary filmmaker, founder and director of Shark Stewards, David McGuire. Thank you for being here. And he's going to be sharing his work on diving with sharks in the Coral Triangle. We'll open this up to Q&A after, so you can either pop your question in the chat box or digitally raise your hand and I'll get to them. All right, David, all you.
Great, thank you. Hello, San Francisco, and wherever you are. I hope everybody's coping with COVID and staying healthy. And thanks to Canopy for sponsoring this. I was actually invited to give a talk in the flesh. I attended one of the Explorers talks before this all crashed upon us at the beginning of the year, and it's a really great series, and I appreciate being hosted and participating with you all with the National Geographic Explorer series, which I am part of the Explorers Club, I guess. So my name is David McGuire. I'm the director and founder of Shark Stewards, and we're part of the Earth Island Institute based in Berkeley. I live in San Francisco, but a lot of our work takes place across the Pacific in Southeast Asia, which is where I'd like to take you today and talk about shark biodiversity, marine biodiversity threats and solutions, because we are an advocacy group. So I'm going to share my screen here and show some pictures and talk about sharks, because Shark Week is coming up. We have Shark Week every week because we love sharks, not just because sharks are cool, which they are, but also because sharks are very important for the health and balance of ocean ecosystems, and sharks are increasingly threatened. So I founded Shark Stewards in 2003 after crossing the Pacific Ocean on an expedition where we were looking at coral reef health and discovered the impacts and overfishing of sharks, particularly shark finning. So we documented that, made a film called Shark Stewards of the Reef. I quit my day job at UC Berkeley, founded Shark Stewards. We used the film to advocate for the California shark fin ban. And then now we've worked in 12 other states, the US government, and international with the UN and other bodies to save sharks and protect them from overfishing. We also work in research, and we try to do more community-based science with local communities and citizen science scuba divers, particularly in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Timor-Leste, where I'm going to take you today, so that formerly East Timor. So we are an education and advocacy group when we apply science towards conservation. And you can join us through social media, through whatever talents you have online. You can email me there or follow our social media. We are part of the Earth Island Institute based in Berkeley, right across from UC Berkeley, where I worked for 13 years, did my graduate work. And Earth Island is a project, an international group that does work all over the world, 70 different projects in a diversity of environmental issues, including inspiring youth leaders to protect the environment, which is what we tried to do in Asia, particularly in China before COVID, and among and with Chinese in Chinese. We do that through media production and education. So today I'm going to talk about saving sharks through dive tourism, and particularly in the Coral Triangle. And I want to talk a little bit about how amazing the Coral Triangle is. It's this area of 6 countries, bounded roughly, if you can kind of see up here by my head. So that's Southeast Asia, India, so the continental Asia, and then to the south, Australia. So between those 2 large continental masses is this area of extreme biodiversity. It has the largest amount of phyla, taxa, and species represented in this small area of a couple million square miles. So it's actually about the size of Australia or US in land mass, only most of it is water, and most of that biodiversity is oceanic or marine. So we work in Borneo, Malaysia, particularly down here in the southeast, and in Indonesia now with a new conservation center, based here on Lombok, southern Lombok Island, and increasingly, hopefully this year, in Timor-Leste, where I visited last year, and where I'd like to take you today. The biodiversity of the Coral Triangle is phenomenal. 75% of all coral species are represented here. It has something like 40% of all the reefs in the world. It has just incredible diversity of megafauna, large fish, a large percentage of elasmobranchs, or sharks, skates, and rays, which we really focus on, at least 12% in this small area, and other large herbivorous fish and bony fish. Over 6,000 species of fish live in this small range of the world. It's an area that has diversity of vertebrates and marine vertebrates like sea snakes, but of course invertebrates. So it is an area that's not only beautiful, but also highly fragile. There are 120 million people live in this area, and they almost all rely on the oceans for their source of protein. Out of those 120 million, about over 10%, actually over 20% are fishermen or fishing people, either subsistence or in some cases commercial, but for the most case, small artisanal fisheries. 6 of the 7 sea turtle species live in here, somewhere around 1/3 of the cetaceans. I mean, it's just some of the most amazing diving in the world, as you can see by this image, with this hawksbill turtle sitting in there among all these sponges and hard hermotypic or scleractinian hard corals. So it's an incredibly great place to dive, and it has a large industry of tourism supporting diving, but increasingly we are trying to apply that economic driver towards conservation. And I will address that a little bit more today. But I want to talk about Timor-Leste because I was invited last year by some colleagues to come visit and explore this relatively new nation. It was a Portuguese colony. It gained independence, or was given independence by the Portuguese, but quickly occupied by Indonesia. They underwent a large freedom movement or civil war, essentially, and gained freedom in 2002 as an independent nation. So it was called East Timor. It's now called Timor-Leste. They speak Tatum, the native language, Portuguese, but a little bit of English. It's a very young nation, meaning like much of the Coral Triangle and Southeast Asia, a large proportion of their population is youth, and these youth need employment. So there's Timor-Leste down there in the middle of the Coral Triangle. Actually, it's kind of at the bottom, closer to North Australia, and it shares this relatively large island with Indonesian Timor. So I want to share a hope with you, because I'm going to get into a little bit of the seaweed about the difficulties and the threats that are occurring, particularly on sharks, but also in the oceans around the world from these multiple anthropogenic stresses. So Mission Blue is an organization that was founded by Dr. Sylvia Earle, a National Geographic Explorer. We call her the Sturgeon General, her deepness, first woman in the deep sea, great scientist, first woman head of NOAA, just the list goes on, one of my heroes. And Mission Blue's focus now is really to generate awareness and influence policy on protecting our oceans. So if you'll bear with me for 1 second, I'm going to share a video with you that we produced with Timor Blue, which is a nonprofit, and Mission Blue based in Alameda, California. So it's on, not that. There it is. So hopefully this will work. This is on our YouTube channel, which is called Shark Stewards. Let's do a full screen. I'll just do it. So this is just a short film. I hope it streams okay and that you can hear it. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to hit the full screen at the bottom.
I'm Sylvia Earle. I'm an ocean explorer, a scientist, and founder of Mission Blue. I want to salute you for what you are doing in Timor-Leste, for celebrating your ocean, taking care of your ocean, and sharing it with people from all over the world. With hundreds of blue whales swimming past Dili every year, families of sperm whales and many different species of dolphins, so close to shore, and dugongs just 5 minutes away from the international airport, you have the most extraordinary and precious blue world in your hands. Truly incredible. Thank you for what you're doing. Tourism actually serves as a powerful education, causing people to be aware of why they matter, why the ocean matters. Timor-Leste is, of course, also blessed with tremendous oil and gas reserves. And while there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that your whales, dolphins, and dugongs are much more precious, their combined value must be realized and shared across all the different marine stakeholders through proper ecotourism as quickly as possible. So, while you have some really big challenges ahead, by working very closely together through ATM, TL, with multiple stakeholder collaboration and planning, with your combined strength and unity, Timor-Leste's blue world will surely stand out above the rest and get proper protection that it really needs and deserves. I want to assure you that you have mine and Mission Blue's full support, and I very much hope to experience Timor-Leste's amazing blue wonderland myself soon. You truly are reason for hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Earle. Whoops. Okay, screen sharing stops. So I'm going to go back to my deck. And that truly is inspirational. And I watched that footage. That's all taken from in Timor-Leste. And it really is just an incredibly diverse and beautiful place. Let's see if I can go back to my slideshow. There we are. Sorry. Go back to where we started. So we produced that in August of last year at a meeting hosted by USAID and this new department called the Timor-Leste Association of Marine Tourism. And we presented the film and also some of this data that I'll share with you on the value and the socioeconomics of tourism supporting conservation. And the arguments are pretty clear, and there's a strong movement thanks to the stakeholders and the support. And so we're proud to announce that we helped sponsor this Hope Spot, which was announced this year for World Oceans Day in June. So this is a spot of hope, a spot of commitment, the stakeholders, the government to support conservation, and groups like ours to go in and bring in science and bring in, hopefully, funds and tourism to support these local livelihoods as opposed to extraction. This is an extremely unique area, has deep water channels. That's why all those cetaceans are there feeding. There's a lot of upwelling. It's called the Indonesian Throughflow, first described in the 1600s by traders, but later on in the 1800s where biodiversity and naturalists started to explore this area. And it's an area of just this incredible diversity and abundance, which is unusual in many tropical environments. So we have these deep channels and deep reefs, which bring in these organisms, plankton, for filter feeders, like these giant sponges, giant sea fans that are hundreds of years old, and hammerhead sharks, thresher pelagic species, but also local benthic species like the zebra shark that only lives in the coral triangle. And all of these diversity of these flat and small sharks, flat sharks being rays, but also the bamboo sharks, which are also called walking sharks because they can crawl around on the bottom. And there were just 2 new species discovered last year. And they can actually go into the air between tide pool and tide pool or hunt during low tide. So they're an extremely hardy little shark. And of course, the eagle rays and the magnificent, majestic mobular manta ray. And so all of these species are drawing tourists, but unfortunately, they're also drawing fishermen as well. Globally, we are in a crisis. Around 80% of all large fish stocks are threatened, overfished, or completely overexploited. Typically, a lot of the fish that were targeted, swordfish and tuna, were also killing sharks as bycatch. In the past, they used to be let go. Half of them would die at least, but now they're being saved and killed for their fins to make shark fin soup. So we have this industrial fishers across the globe, but also on a smaller scale, fishing for tuna and swordfish, but also increasingly shark. So that 90% of the large oceans fish are fished out. And that was a study done by Boris Worm in 2012. There was just a study that was published last week by the Global Fin Print Project that shows that 20% of coral reefs are absent of sharks. These are the reefs that I used to dive in the aughts and the thousands, and were completely abundant with sharks and healthy coral reefs. Associated with this, we see a decline in the biodiversity and the health of the reef when those apex predators are missing. So that was in our film Shark Stewards of the Reef with Dr. Enrique Sala, who's also an explorer and resident, and he was a professor at Scripps at the time. But he has demonstrated scientifically, as others who have followed, showing the critical importance of sharks to the health and the balance of ocean ecosystems. This marine megafauna study was published last year. So animals over 45 kilograms, including sea turtles, large fish, whales, and especially sharks, at the current rate of decline and threatened species, 18% will be extinct, functionally extinct in 100 years, with 11% associated ecosystem services. So these animals are not just playing a role in their own lives, the nutrient cycle, eating other fish or getting eaten. They're also helping the invertebrate cycle, the coral reefs, or other marine ecosystems. In an extreme case, it's something like 40% of the species that are threatened now will be extinct in 100 years, with a 48% impact and loss of species in the ocean. This is a crisis. We are facing an ocean crisis, and the way that we can help protect it and reverse it is saving these large marine megafauna. We all know Save the Whales. We love whales. We love big fish. Most of the time, we love to eat them. Sea turtles, 6 of the 7 species are threatened with extinction. They're lovable. We love them. And in some cases, they are recovering. But sharks are on the deep decline. There is very little protection for sharks globally. There's very little international protection. And we need to rely on not only international governance, enforcement against illegal fishing, but also supporting their habitats and the other species that live with them. And that's what we are trying to do, because we can see even in areas like this is the Galapagos, South America is over there at the bottom, Cocos, these are in Malpelo, these are all marine protected areas by Colombia, by Costa Rica, and by Ecuador. There's something called the Hammerhead Highway that these hammerheads and sea turtles are using this migratory pathway. They're getting poached. Each one of those dots is a ship with the AIS identification system. But what's happening is they're turning the lights out. They're called dark fishers, or they're keeping the lights on, and they are poaching in these World Heritage sites, these national protected areas, the areas that have the highest abundance, the most incredible life that tourists can come see. But right now during COVID, this was taken just a week ago, that we're seeing an incredible amount of poaching in the oceans. So one of the things that we're doing at Shark Stewards is going to mount an expedition to go out and document this fall, going down the coast of Mexico and to these islands to make a film, but also to expose these poachers in these protected areas. Because we hear about shark attacks, but we don't hear about the attack on sharks. 25% of all shark skates and rays that we have data on are threatened with extinction. under the International Union of Conservation of Nature, IUCN. That's a 2014 study about efficient. We don't know enough of their biology in order to protect them. What we do know is that we're killing them too fast for their fins, for shark fin soup, where they're losing their habitat. They're getting impacted by ocean acidification. They're having problems finding prey. They're losing their habitat because of acidification or warm sea surface temperature. So all of these impacts are converging and acting synergistically that are impacting not only the health of the shark population, but going back to that marine megafauna study or the work of Henri Sala, we're seeing this trophic cascade and a collapse of an ecosystem. So saving these apex predators from overfishing can save the whole planet and save the ocean and the oxygen we rely on. So we are overfishing sharks. This was near our lab in Indonesia, taken last year, but perhaps there's hope. Sharks are worth more alive than dead. There's over a $500 million economy for shark diving globally. So diving with whale sharks and manta rays, and also nature adventure-based tourism, especially in the Coral Triangle, is bringing jobs and alternative livelihoods to not only the local people, but also other operators. Whale watching is growing globally. Blue whales, sperm whales, pygmy sperm whales, 1/3 of the cetacean species are down there. Magnificent place to see whales and keep them alive. I think it's a $2 billion industry. Fishing in the Coral Triangle brings in about $2.4 billion. $12 billion in ecosystem services are gained. So we can support these places with our money and creating permanent marine protection. We had a goal of 10% by 2020, we missed it. There's a new goal of 30% by 2030 to protect our oceans under marine protected areas. And that's what we're doing in Timor-Leste, supporting it with our local partners, doing studies, but also supported by the local tribal leaders who are in turn being benefited. And people like this selling small fish on the street can now do this, be a dive master and take people out every day and still have fish to eat and fish to see. I know we're running out of time, but I do want to give a plea. We work with young Chinese, trying to expose them and educate them diving and also advocating for ocean health, but as well, it means respect, and that goes both ways. The ocean connects us all. We all need to respect each other, respect the ocean, and respect our cultures collectively. There's too much talk about hate and too much talk about blame when we all need to gain together, work together to protect our ocean and our environment and the future of a stable planet. So you can dive in with us, save a shark, join our work, please, as a volunteer. We are taking trips to Socorro Island next year to do manta ray studies. I'm going to Timor-Leste in November. We are hoping to bring some divers. We're not sure if we can, with the dive shop Blue Endeavors and nonprofit partners. And if you're in California, you can dive in as part of the Cal Academy snapshot of the California coast. I'm going diving this weekend. We're collecting data. You can do so as a citizen science under our MPA Watch program in collaboration with the State Marine Protected Area Collaborative and Ocean Sanctuaries. And if you want to take action, go to our website. We have a couple active petitions to support protecting our current protected areas from this administration, from opening our marine national monuments to fishing, also eBay selling endangered species, and supporting the Federal Shark Fin Trade Act in the Senate, which could squeak through. And so I want to thank our local partners, especially in Timor-Leste, Conservation International, Scuba Zoo, the ATM, all of these dive groups and tourism groups that are supporting conservation. If you have a chance to go, tell them Shark Steward said hi, or maybe we'll see you there diving and helping protect the ocean. So thank you, thanks Canopy, thanks to our supporters and funders and National Geographic.
Thank you, David. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that made sharks get a bad reputation?
Well, occasionally they bite people. It's interesting. I've given a whole lecture on the mythology of sharks, and they really have a bad reputation. they're called devilfish, they're called dogfish. We think the word comes from the German Schurke, which means shirk, or however Germans say it, gutturally, which means villain or scoundrel. We call, lawyers sharks, loan sharks, land sharks. I think it has something to do perhaps with this atavistic fear that we have. Maybe it's a survival instinct. We're fascinated by our predators. We're fascinated by grizzly bears, polar bears. We're fascinated by great white sharks. But we're not as fascinated about biodiversity or the diversity of sharks, or a shark that's this big, or a shark that's flat. So I think a lot of it really is our own fear and ignorance. And that's something that we're trying to reverse, especially with Shark Week coming up. We're going to have our opposite of Shark Week, Shark Love Week. So not about shark attacks, not about Tyson versus the white shark, or these stupid programs that actually feed into that fear.
Like,
but also to try to,
that film.
well, Sharknado is clever, I think. It was so unbelievable. Sharks raining out of the sky, right? I mean, we love horror films. We love to be scared, right? I think it's something about our nature, the fight or flight syndrome, right? We get an adrenaline rush. And that's okay as long as you're watching a screen and you're not going to get killed and you're not going to kill an animal. But when people take it one step further and go out through vendetta killing or killing for sport, then that's not a positive thing, right?
Yeah. And how did you get into this?
Well, I studied marine biology. I grew up surfing and diving at a very young age. Always loved the ocean. And I had a teacher in between junior high school and high school. I grew up in LA County up in the valley. And this Dr. Siders taught marine biology. And I learned that I could maybe get a job doing something that I loved and also learn more by sticking my head underwater and examining it. I studied marine toxicology and I worked in that field in environmental health. So I didn't study sharks until I discovered sharks being overfished on that expedition between 2001 and 2003, and then learning about how important they are as apex predators. So it all started from there. Our first film was called Shark Stewards of the Reef. We used that as a advocacy film to pass a shark fin ban in California and Hawaii, other states, but also we translated it into Chinese because it doesn't condemn a culture. It's not racist. It's not pointing fingers. It's talking about a problem and a misunderstanding.
Yeah, so it's educating people. It's like, this is not, like, sharks are not scary. I think sharks are cute. The only ones, like, it's like everyone's like, it's the great white shark. That's the image that everyone sees. But there's so many different species. And also manta rays, they're also sharks. People don't realize that.
Yeah, there are nearly 500 species of what we consider the kind of the sharky sharks. But there are more species of rays. And their diversity is amazing. And their importance in the ocean is amazing. Yeah, we focus on white sharks. And Jaws did a pretty big disservice. It was a really good book by Peter Benchley. And it was a really good film. But it really scared people, but they took it too literally. And you can see by the success of Discovery Channel Shark Week, it still pays off, that fear factor, unfortunately. But if we just get scared for fun and enjoy it, and we realize it's fiction, and that sharks are important, I think that's the next step. It's like, yeah, sharks are really cool. And the funny thing is, when I talk to youth and classes, which we do a lot, and we're doing a lot of Zoom classrooms, kids are really excited. They're like dinosaurs, the dinosaur kids. There's the shark kids. They just are fascinated. They know the facts. They love them. They're really excited. So we want to feed that fire of enthusiasm and fascination and actually translate it across the Pacific to other cultures.
Yeah.
And we actually have a book coming out, a Shark Kid science book that will be launched during what we call Sharktoberfest. In the fall when the white sharks return from their migration. So we're lucky enough in San Francisco and the Bay Area, west coast of North America, to have this population of white sharks that are recovering. They were almost extirpated or locally extinct. They were almost hunted out in the 80s. They started to get protected in the 90s, and now they're recovering. So where I am now, we're seeing a lot more juveniles and younger sharks, and it makes the news all the time, but they're not biting people. Sometimes they're bumping into somebody accidentally, but they're not biting people. So it is pretty thrilling to go swimming where I am. Actually, it's called Stingray Bay. and it's a nursery site for young white sharks, and that's where I swim, and I go out there looking for them.
Yeah, I think the other thing is also teaching people about respect. I grew up in Africa. I went to safaris. I saw lions. It's like, yeah, these are predators. Like, you know, like, of course you're going to run out, like, be in their habitat. Like, they're going to probably try and attack you. Like, you're in their territory. Right? It's the same thing.
Yeah, and it is analogous. You know, the safari model, it can be done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it can harm the animals or their habitat, or it can be done right and bring in jobs and also protect them from poaching. And the same with dive ecotourism for sharks. So there's a matter of respect, as you said, that we need to have, and we can coexist if we are respecting them.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions today? It is a small audience, and this is live on Facebook. And it's also going to be living on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, so people usually watch it after. So does anyone have anything? If not, any last comments that you have, David?
Sure. If you want to learn more, go to our website, sharkstewards.org. All of our social media, you can follow us on Instagram, Shark Stewards, everything Shark Stewards. And I wanted to comment on our new logo there and here. If you want to sign up for our newsletter, we'll send you a sticker. And we changed because we were just talking about white sharks. Our former logo was a white shark. So this has been our logo for 12 years or so, because white sharks were still recovering. They're threatened. They're disappearing, actually, for unknown reasons off of South Africa. There's probably less than 3,000 in the world. So there's less white sharks than tigers.
Oh, wow.
Which are threatened with extinction. But we're doing pretty well off our coastline. So we wanted to reinvent ourselves and focus really on extremely threatened species such as hammerheads and manta rays and other species. So we have this new logo and our new brand. If people want to go to our website and learn more, take action, donate if you can to support the work that we're doing, but particularly please join us in one of our citizen science programs or maybe even diving.
Well, I might take you up on a dive one day. I need to. I just have to get over the coldness of the water in the bay in San Francisco.
We're going to be doing one of the citizen science dives August 8th in Monterey.
Okay, that's around the corner.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, Romy has a question. Hold on. Romy, I'm going to unmute you. Oh, you are muted.
I am unmuted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, I just want to ask him. I had lived in Taiwan and I took a boat many years ago to Okinawa and then on to Ishigaki. And there's a lot of sea snakes. What is that all about? I saw them. It was scary. It's like scary. You wouldn't want to like fly overboard.
I've definitely dove areas, mostly tropical, but there are some temperate areas like actually Cocos Island in the Eastern Pacific that has sea snakes, but they are air breathers. They're a vertebrate, and they feed on small fish in the reefs. I don't know why you'd see a lot. It would probably indicate that there's an absence of predators, which could be an absence of sharks.
Oh, okay.
Or there's an abundance of food. Whenever you see there's a little bit of, or sometimes mating assemblages, but I've never seen a large aggregation of sea snakes. Many species are venomous, but they pretty much would have to bite you between your fingers. So I've handled them and they're really beautiful. But yeah, I have friends in Taiwan and interesting place.
And in Ishigaki, in Ishigaki, there was a beach and there was a sign there saying not to swim because of the sea snakes. Like that's one of the Japanese, the Japanese run it, Ishigaki. So it was a beautiful beach, but not a soul. I don't know. Anyway, it's strange. I don't know. It's unusual. So you think it's basically because they're about the food supply, you said?
Well, I mean, they are a local species,
right?
Like many of the species of fish and other animals. If you're seeing a lot in one area, typically that means it's an imbalance, or there's a sudden increase in their food supply, or they're aggregating to reproduce. This is when we see a lot of assemblages of animals. So feeding and breeding is one of the big drivers for all of us, humans included. So we'll see aggregations. I've never seen one. It sounds fascinating. It could just be a certain coastal condition, an oceanographic condition that brings them maybe an upwelling. So there's a lot of fish abundance or their prey.
But a lot like the Tropic of Cancer and stuff like that. I mean, do you have more kind of different species of fish in some of those, like Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic
Well,
Cancer?
the two tropics, 23.5 degrees latitude, go around the globe, right? And they actually
Right.
bound the equators in the center. So the tropics are bounded by those two latitudes. You're talking about a large area of ocean, so I can't really answer that question specifically.
No, I don't mean, I just thought that I don't know, it was just strange when I think, I'm not sure, I can't remember, but I think Ishigaki was near the Tropic of Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw a lot of sea snakes there. I didn't know if what that was about, that's all.
Well, it's also because, you know, islands, a lot of the ocean is desertified. I mean, it's like a desert. There's not a lot of abundance. Like we have one of the most abundant ocean habitats off of our coastline in the world. Also off South Africa, also South America, and Western Australia, these large upwelling areas. But most of the ocean is fairly depopulated life. And so when you have an island in a deep sea area, like you do at Okinawa, you've got upwelling, you've got a convergence of currents, and you also have habitat for those animals to live, and a foundation of coral, which grows only primarily in the tropics. So you've got all of those factors coming together, and you can see these abundances of life where you don't see in other areas.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And it was a pleasure having you here. And Shark Week, I'm excited to see everything now.
Yeah, we'll be doing our own Shark Week on Instagram and throwing some shark factoids, reality out there. So it won't be as sensationalistic, but it'll be educational and fun. So hope you can follow us.
After this, I'm just going to shoot you an email, and if you can send me the donation link, I will put it in our newsletter.
Great. Okay. It's definitely right prominent on our homepage at sharkstewards.org, but happy to send you the link too. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I'll just go to your website and I'll find it. I will promote you guys. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
And I will hopefully talk to you soon.
Okay.
All
hopefully
right.
in person someday.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.